or rather, it is very true about some guys, but even if guys wouldn't be drawn by the body of their classmates, they would be drawn by their souls, by an attraction that is more powerful than the physical. And certainly, of course, as time goes by and physical attraction, who knows where it ends. In any case, if I go back to my more optimistic scenario for Notre Dame, and I'm surely wrong about many people, but imagine you are the innocent person that has a mixed friendship. How much will it last? How much will that friendship last without that becoming a dating relationship, or without one of the two realizing that this, now we're no longer children. Now we're 44. I don't know. By the way, the key issue here is what you want, what a person wants. So when I say beware of re-encounters with your childhood friends, I mean of the opposite sex, now that they are so easy via Facebook or those things, I say beware if you don't want to end up in romance with one of those friends because you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, because you're married. You need to be very careful. But then if you aren't, and what you want is precisely to meet someone, well, then maybe it's not a bad idea. In the same way, maybe it's not a bad idea to start a friendship with someone that ends up eventually in a dating relationship and later in a marriage. So it all depends on what I want. The measure of prudence depends on what I want. The goal, my goal, is what controls the amount of dosing, the amount of prudence that I need to instill. This is even a psychological, non-moral thing. If what I want to be is unfaithful to my boyfriend, or to my girlfriend, or to my spouse, then you need to go. All my theory holds true, and you want to have mixed friendships because you know that what you want is really not mixed friendships, but rather to be unfaithful, or if you want to find love, or whatever. So first exception, children. Second exception, when there is a huge age difference. But I want to say that about this exception, the situation is relevantly different depending on who is older. So I want to say that, for example, I think I have two real friends of the opposite sex, and both of them are 25 years older than me. I think in those cases, it's very likely that it will work, that friendship. The other way around, more uncertain. There's always more room for uncertainty in this fallen world in which we are. Thirdly, third exception, blood, family, sisters, nieces, grandchildren. So, for example, some saints of the Catholic Church, famously, their best friend was their brother or their sister. My sister is certainly one of my best friends. So there is a good case for an exception here. There is a slightly worse case for an exception when it comes to spiritual fellowship, brotherhood, sistership, saints, sainthood, more or less. I mean, John Paul II had a mixed friendship. He had a friend of the opposite sex. I read a 700-page book written by the friend of Karol Wojtyla. And yeah, but it was unstable. It was clear to me that this was an unstable friendship. And it is also clear that last year there was a scandal because of this, even with the Pope already canonized. Because some people found some letters that went one way or the other, and they thought that they were a bit shocking. They weren't, but you know. Saint Therese of Avila has a quote, a saying, which I couldn't find in English, so I'll have to translate it. It's very difficult to translate to English. She said in Spanish something like this: in between two saints of the opposite sex, there has to be like a wall. Like it's like a metaphor to show that it's going to be a difficult friendship. And certainly it's clear from the book I mentioned that Carol and Wanda, Carol Wojtyla's friend, were always on a short leash, and her husband was always around. Although this is no guarantee, as I will explain later, the presence of a husband. Okay, so enough about the exceptions, and I'm almost there, and I will gladly then listen to your comments and to your questions, and I will probably not be able to answer some of them, but I'll do my best. It's important, my next remark is to distinguish between a mixed friendship and acting out of charity regarding someone of the opposite sex. This is perfectly valid. It's sometimes mandatory or necessary or advisable, depending on the circumstances. But because the tension inherent in the attraction will be present, sometimes that charity will have to be exercised through another person, maybe, so that the recipient of my charity will not know that that comes from me, but maybe from a girlfriend, you know, maybe she's my sister, just to give an example of what I have in mind. There is like a thin line sometimes between mixed friendship and acting out of charity. So acting silently or anonymously, you don't need to help them yourself. This is very clear, especially when the person knows that the one who needs help has feelings for one, as that happens so many times, like so many boyfriends, girlfriends, or even spouses, they know that the other person is ill or needs review for an exam, you know, and sometimes they are so innocent, or they seem innocent. Sometimes people are less innocent than they seem. And they go themselves, and then that's a disaster. You know, it's everything again. You can do it vicariously. My final remarks. I was always annoyed, before I prepared this talk, by the way Hollywood portrays relationships between men and women. And you don't even need to go to Hollywood. In the film festival, there was a movie about a love triangle where one of the guys had a girlfriend, but they ended up together on a bed. And although there is exaggeration in Hollywood and in the Notre Dame film, in my view, the exaggeration of thinking that, as in the movies, like the day people meet, they will end up having sex. Now, I think that that exaggeration actually confirms the point in my talk because of the slippery slope, you know, because how a friendship can so easily slide. And this is what happens, like in the movie Once, I need to mention my movies from time to time. In the movie Once, there is a very exceptional scene where the day they met, basically they go to his room, and the guy asks the actress, we never know their names, whether she would like to stay the night there. And she's like shocked by the proposal, which like is totally un-Hollywood. You know what I always thought? Once, that's great. That's how all movies should be. But real life, in real life, after having spent 12 hours together, as they do doing the songs and all that, the odds that the situation will not end the way it typically ends in Hollywood are very low, I think. It takes two to tango, the saying goes. And in the movie Once, what happens is that she's not willing. Later we know she's married. So it takes two to tango, and typically the guy, so goes the prototype, is the one who wants more. My second final remark is to put the question forward about whether it makes a difference for the purposes of my thesis if you are celibate, single, dating, engaged, or married. And my short answer is no. It doesn't make much of a difference. It makes a small difference. And here is when I come back to the presence of the boyfriend, in my case, or husband of your girlfriend there, and how that doesn't have to be too overrated. You know, sometimes people fall in this wrong pattern of thinking that if I am here with my girlfriend, but her boyfriend is here, I can say anything to her because he's here. So this is, and that sometimes leads to terrible situations. And if there is alcohol, even more so. No, because he's here and he's my friend too, you know, I feel free to say anything. Rather, my conclusion has been, and I've learned this through painful experiences rather, that, so in the past I would think, I will not say to a girl something I wouldn't say to her in the presence of her boyfriend. But now I think the other way around. I won't say to her something in the presence of her boyfriend that I wouldn't say to her on her own. So with me that works better, I must tell you. Third concluding remark. Matchmaking. Like many other activities of this sort, highly dangerous. Again, remember, I'm assuming your goal when you are matchmaking and you're talking to a girl or a boy to make a match, I'm assuming your goal is not for her to fall in love with you. But that can happen. Or you can fall in love with her. So matchmaking, be careful. You know, Emma, the novel by Jane Austen, will tell you a lot about that. Very problematic matchmaking. Mr. Knightley, by the way, in Emma is like the friend, the just friend who waits patiently. He's not a friend, he's never a friend. But Emma thinks he's a friend, and he's an older guy too, by the way. And this is the patient guy. You don't want to be that guy. Like be the friend for 20 years, like in Vanity Fair. I strongly recommend you read that painful book to understand why it is not worth being friends of someone you like. Not good. Joss teaches a lesson. It's important too to remember, and I hope I won't offend anyone by saying this, that girls love to be liked, and the more, the merrier. They are a little bit vain. So are we, of course. So they like to be liked by friends, by boyfriends, by everyone, by their father, by their uncles. You know. Body contact. My next remark. I'm almost there. Body contact. Dancing. Who will you dance with? Girls, watch out those hugs. There are hugs and hugs. But why am I saying this? The girls know perfectly well this. This is why I'm saying that sometimes people seem more innocent than they are. Body contact. I remember one of the first girls I dated, maybe the second one, I was, I think, 16 or so. We were sitting on some stairs, and I held her hand at some point, like for 10 or 15 minutes. And the following day, she asked me, I wanted to ask you something. Why did you hold my hand yesterday? I thought, oh my God, this is a question I don't want to be asked. Well, this is what you need to think about, actually. Post-dating friends. Let's remain friends. So trite. So if friendship is always impossible, it's even more impossible if there was a spark of something, or a dating relationship. So in those cases, if you want to be like in a joking spirit, what you need to say is something like this: okay, we will meet again and maybe we will be friends. When I come, this you're talking to your ex, right? When I come to the first communion of one of your children, and you're 20 when you say this, right? And then you know this will never happen anyways. You should see, by the way, Young Adult, the movie directed by the director of Juno, where Charlize Theron faces a similar situation to this one. My conclusion is, as I thank you for your attention, that when it comes to the possibility or even the reality of mixed friendships, we ought to be sincere with ourselves. We ought to be sure of what we want. And if what we want is to be just friends, we ought to be very skeptic about that possibility and be very prudent. With these reservations in mind, I strongly encourage you to have many friendships with people of your same sex and enjoy them. Thank you very much.
We have time for some questions if anybody would like to.
On what the law student said, he made the argument that you can't have, you could have a mixed friendship when you're not attracted to the other person. If the argument against that is that you still have connection through a spiritual or mental connection, how is that different than a relationship between two people of the same gender?
Oh, I see. That's a good question. I think that the complementarity between the two sexes and the attraction, as with things that are meant to fit with one another, goes way beyond the physical. So there are some things, some aspects in the personality of a woman that have to do with being a woman that you will not normally find in your male friend. That would be my answer. I don't know if it helps or if it makes sense.
No, I agree with that. I just think it's possible that you had a situation where even the mental connection is based off similarities in that your minds are similar but not complementary. In that case, I would say there is a possibility.
Well, let's see. I could think of a scenario, hypothetical, of course, where a woman is not only extremely unattractive, but also personality-wise extremely masculine. So, maybe.
It's a little out of the ballpark, but I think it's...
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I had a question regarding, like, I guess your definition of friendship, because I get that, like, I wouldn't be able to be the same level of friendship with a guy as I am with one of, like, my best girlfriends, but what about the varying levels of friendship even between me and another girl, like, there's certain people that, like, I would tell everything, but then there's certain people that you don't, and I still call them friends, and it just depends. And so what if you can still be friends with a guy, but you're just not on the very, like, best friendship level?
Yes, that's also a good question. I think that there is indeed a variety of intensity of friendship for you with girls. That in that we are in agreement. But what you will have successfully, in my opinion, with guys without the risks that I described will not fall in any of those. Although you might call them friends for social purposes, I'm not suggesting that you should give a talk each time you introduce someone, you know, as my friend, you know. But yeah, I mean, those guys with whom you have a connection that goes farther than a mere acquaintance, they may be similar, your relationship with them, to the one you have with some of your girlfriends. I agree with that. But there is a potentiality in the case of a guy that is normally absent in the case of a girl.
But what if that's just another level of friendship? Like, I'm not equating it, that type of friendship, to the type of girl friendship, but what's just a different kind of friendship?
Yes, I understand. The thing is that it may be a different kind, but that different kind, when we're talking about a guy, may become something else. Because it takes two to tango, you may think you're in control of that friendship and that you're going to be able to keep it in that box where it is now. But you know, there's someone else there. And also you may change in the future. And hypothetically, that would not happen with your girlfriend.
But what if your girl, like, friendship ruined? Not necessarily for, like, sexual reasons, but, like, just...
Say that again?
Like, what if you're saying the potential to ruin a friendship with a guy is because of sexual reasons?
Not sexual exclusively.
Mm-hmm.
As I said to him, it goes farther than that. It's about the other person being a member of the opposite sex, with all that this entails when it comes to the personality and the soul, not only the sex.
Well,
Wow.
we've just about reached an hour, so I want to thank everybody for coming. It helped me think.
If anybody would like to follow up and
Yeah.
talk with Santiago, I'm sure he'd be happy
Of
to
course.
stick around for a few minutes. We also have some food left over in the back if anybody would like some. And I put out a few Rovers in the back just to plug for us because we're sponsoring this. So if you want to pick some up, they just came out today. So, but thank you again, and everybody have a good night.
Thank you.